Hello and welcome to All About Billings. We are a show dedicated to discovering the people who make Billings a great place to work and live. We will interview local business people, community leaders, artists, entertainers, and we will learn from them all about their successes, their challenges, and their connection to Billings. I'm your host, Nancy Brook, broker and owner at Billings Best Real Estate, and today I have a special treat of introducing you to two members of my team who are here today to talk all about real estate 2026. So help me welcome to the show, first of all, Karlin.
Hi.
And Elian Diaz.
Hello.
Well, welcome, you guys.
Thanks for having us here.
Well, we talk all the time, so
Yes.
this is going to be just pretty conversational. So one of the things that people are always asking is, how in the heck did you get started in real estate? I mean, I don't think like you're growing up, you're going to school and people ask, what do you want to do when you grow up? Okay, a teacher, a doctor, a nurse, who knows, even an artist. People usually don't say, I want to be a real estate agent. So Kari, let's start with you. How did you get involved in real estate?
Well, I'd been living here for quite some time, and like a lot of people, my job just wasn't providing me enough income, so I wanted to have another source of income. And I thought real estate would be flexible enough to accommodate my schedule, so I got involved part-time, and then after doing that a few years, I found the right office where it enabled me to become an agent full-time. And I've been doing that for the last, total for a little over 8 years.
Well, and before I move on to Elian, was it scary quitting your regular job and going to be an agent? And I remember you started off doing things like maybe part-time you still worked. Mm-hmm. First of all, you're working full-time,
right,
and doing real estate every once in a while. Mm-hmm. And then you started being involved with us,
right,
and you started doing more deals, and then you were working half-time. So what was it like when you quit your job?
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's especially if you're a single person doing it on your own. I can't imagine, because you don't know when your next paycheck is going to come in. It's uncertain, and so I was very fortunate to have my husband there to support me, and it just made the transition a lot smoother. So I'm very grateful to have him.
Well, and let's talk about how you got started. You haven't been in the industry too long, but you have a great story.
Yeah, so I originally growing up, I wanted to be in aviation and wanted to be a pilot. So to take a nice 360 turn into real estate was not expected, but I happened to get the opportunity to kind of be the sideman for my mother's long-term boyfriend, who manages properties here in Billings, Montana with RMD Rentals. So I got the opportunity to learn about plumbing and HVAC and flooring, and I really caught an interest in it, but I knew that wasn't the particular field that I wanted to
You didn't want to be
down.
ripping out cupboards and
yeah,
installing
well,
flooring.
I was doing a flooring job, and it was an 8-hour flooring job, and by the time I was done with it, I had felt like I had done a full body workout times 100, and I was like, this is not for me. But I just kind of went online and was like, what can I do that's still actively involved in real estate and stuff like that? And they said, well, be a realtor. So I explored realtors online and really fell in love with the amount of money that they show online, but they don't ever show you the stress that goes behind each transaction. They don't show you how to be a salesperson. They don't show you the obstacles that you'll run into. And so I fell in love with the freedom of scheduling, the fast cars, the money, the high-end luxury, and then was humbled very quickly. But I absolutely love real estate, and the best part about it is every day's a new opportunity, and the flexibility is incredible, and the people you meet and getting to understand all of their needs and different reasons for why they are buying or selling is it's truly a blessing, and it's incredible to be a part of. So.
Well, and I like what you're saying. Sometimes people get into it just with the lure of, oh gosh, this seems like a great way to make income, my money's unlimited, it's only limited by how much I work, and I'm a hard worker.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is your greatest rewards don't just come with the money, although the money's nice. It comes with truly helping people and touching them. And
Yeah.
man, I can think of some people who've bought maybe even a trailer home through me, $20,000, $30,000. Some of the most memorable people I've ever worked with. And of course, I didn't get paid much to do it, but it's just like that feeling of satisfaction.
Yeah.
And I think you get enticed maybe because, okay, I can control my own schedule, I can make money, but then the long-term satisfaction comes from truly making a difference in people's lives, I think, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, just helping them navigate through something that can be very stressful, especially if they're first-time home buyers. To be able to be the person that they can trust is truly an honor. You know, I think when you're navigating basically the biggest purchase of someone's life,
Yeah.
You have to have that connection and you have to have that trust. And then it just makes it so much more rewarding when you make it to the finish line and get to hand over the keys to their brand new house and they get to look you in the eyes and you just see the excitement and the happiness. It's truly wonderful. So.
Well, and you bring up a good point, Kari, and I'm sure you've seen this through the years. Sometimes people get very emotionally charged during transactions.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help people, I guess, navigate through that?
Well, I always say, I tell people, I don't just sell property. There's so many facets of your job. Like, I'm a counselor. I mean, you know, helping people understand. I'm a teacher. I'm an you know, there's so many facets of it. Like,
you're a tour guide,
right? Yeah, tour guide. Yes, yes. So, you know, it's just there's so many unknowns with people in real estate. You don't know until you don't know. You know, and so ask the questions. You know, I'm here to help you along, and I want you to understand the process because, you know, like Elian said, it's the biggest purchase of your life.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's shocking for people, and they don't like the unknowns and the uncertainty. And so helping them understand the process, just, it makes a big difference for them.
So
really
can you recall a transaction that is pretty memorable to you? You don't have to give names or anything,
Yeah.
but just something that kind of warmed your heart when you made it through.
Oh, well, one of my recent ones, she was she was paranoid about everything. I'm like, no, this, like, it to them it seems like a big deal, like something's not going the way it should, or I've provided this information already. Why do I have to do it again? I'm like, no, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces to this transaction, and, you know, party A might not know what party B knows, and so, you know, we're just sharing information again. And she's like, why are they asking this? I'm like, I said, no, this really isn't a big deal. I said, I know the agent we're working with. It's going to go smoothly. We've got a great relationship together. We'll get through this, honestly. I said, if I'm nervous, then you should be nervous, but I'm not. So we're all in good hands. So, yes, it's just kind of calming them down and keeping them off the tree that they want to climb.
Right. Well, and you know, the market has shifted quite a bit. Obviously, in 2020, 2021, the prices were going up rapidly. Buyers were having challenges even acquiring a home because there were so many people bidding on the homes.
Right.
And now we're seeing a bit slowed down real estate market and people not as likely to put their home on the market like they were in 2020. So what do you think you're seeing in terms of the market today, Elian?
I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing, especially with sellers, you know, they're just more worried about the level of qualified buyers. I think a couple years back there was just so many of them, and so for it to kind of shift and there to be less, they're just kind of, you know, their time is valuable too, and so I think the biggest thing is their time. You know, working with sellers, they just don't want their time to be wasted. So I think that's a factor. And I think the biggest thing too is, well, this year has been quite interesting with the weather. I know weather is a big factor, and obviously anyone who's familiar with Billings weather and surrounding areas, we should be plummeted in 2 feet of snow, and it's been very different. So I think that's a factor as well, and so now obviously sellers are like, whoa, we have this warm weather, maybe
Maybe
I
it's
should
okay
start
to
to
list.
yeah, maybe I should wing out the spring projects a little bit early and get started and then list, February and March. So, obviously that kind of plays a part in it. And then obviously, when you're seeing people out in open houses and actually being attentive to making that step to home ownership, that's also one thing that sellers like to see as well, for them to have confidence that they could get their house to a closing table.
Well, and I know with sellers we're seeing more price reductions, we're seeing sellers giving concessions, being willing to make repairs, where in 2020 it's like, this house is as is, if you don't like it, these other people are going to buy it, so take it or leave it.
Yeah.
What have you noticed for the change in market, Kari, when it comes to sellers and buyers?
For my buyers, I've noticed, a lot of them, I'm able to get the concessions, like money towards closing costs, if not, a good portion of it, and doing a lot of the repairs that are necessary, to get it covered by the loan that they have. So it's definitely a different market than it was 5 years ago.
Well, and interest rates have come up a lot. Back then, we were looking high 2s, 3s.
Right.
It was even under, maybe low 4s, but it was very much in the 2s and 3s. And now, we're celebrating because we're finally hitting under 6 sometimes. So it's quite a difference. And so that has made buyers a little more reluctant to pull the trigger, hasn't it?
Well, and the other thing I'm seeing is that you might have a family that had a large house because they had all their kids home, and now the kids have left. And so you have just a couple left, the empty nest syndrome, but they have this big house, but they got it at a great interest rate. And so they're stuck in this big house that they don't really need, but they can't afford to move into a smaller house because the interest rate is going to be higher.
Right.
So, if anything ever changes with interest rates, there's going to be a big swing for a lot of houses available.
Well, and then what happens when the interest rates go down? Prices probably will go up. So I always advise people, and you can comment on this, that if you have the means to pay for a house now, chances are it's a better time to buy, and then when interest rates fall, refinance. There's no guarantee that interest rates are going to fall in the next 2 years. However, if you can afford it now, you're going to get a better price than you will if interest rates fall.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because you don't have as much competition with the houses that you're looking at. So if the prices, or if the interest rate does drop, everybody's going to get on the bandwagon and try and look, and then the prices are going to go back up and you're in competition again. So if you can do it now, it's much better off to do it if you can.
Absolutely. And I think part of the challenge in our market too is a lot of people say, they're challenged finding affordable housing. What are you seeing, Elian? Are you seeing people able to find some opportunities?
Yeah, I think there's opportunities out there for everyone, but I think the biggest thing too, like a transaction I have right now, the gal is working with a specific price point, and so we were having some challenges because she wants a mobile, but then she's like, well, I don't want to pay lot rent, and right now lot rent is it's just getting extremely high in many different places.
$600, $700, $800, $900. Yes.
Upwards to close to $1,000 in some places, and so that was kind of a challenge for us. And with the limited inventory, it's just like there's only so much that you can show, and especially trying to find a mobile that's on a lot that comes with the property is also pretty rare as well. So I think the biggest thing is that can be a challenge, but I think if you have the right agent that is willing to kind of call sellers and just have a conversation, understand maybe what went wrong with the last listing, then they're usually more willing to kind of work with you. And that's kind of what's awesome about what I've got going on right now is I actually reached out to a seller with a really nice remodeled mobile and comes with the land, and talked to him about what might have went wrong. And I don't think that the agent did anything wrong at all. I just think the market and the timing was wrong for what the demand was, after and what buyers were looking for at the time. So I think just kind of the agent that you're working with plays a strong role in that kind of stuff, and can definitely help a lot more than obviously when we're limited with what we have on the market. So.
Well, and that's a really good point. So, being willing to do things above and beyond, like you searched off-market properties to see if you could find something for this buyer. I know, Kari, you've done creative things with like inspections and being able to get things fixed so it will work for everybody. Why don't you talk a little bit about inspections, because that's something I think that a lot of people are really overwhelmed with when they get into the buying process.
Well, people look at it like another expense, like my house is already going to be expensive, but this is kind of like an insurance policy, I would say. There's different parts of the inspection. You have your basic one, where they just go over the house in general. But there's add-ons, like you can have the sewer inspected and then having the radon checked. A lot of people are kind of like, oh, that's just extra stuff, I don't want to worry about it. But I can't tell you how many times in the last year where people have done the sewer scope and the house looked perfect, but so they were like, oh no, it'll be fine. I'm like, trust me, it's just
it'll a couple $100 maybe, right?
It's going to ease your mind. Well, lo and behold, something came up, and it was a $10,000 repair that my buyers wouldn't have been able to afford.
Right.
And so they came back after the fact, like, thank you for pushing us to get this done. I mean, it was the last thing you want to find out when you get in your house and you're enjoying everything is something comes up and you're gonna, you have a $10,000 repair. Nobody's prepared for that.
Well, and let's think of it. If you have granny or grandpa living in a house, they're not taking long showers, using a bunch of water, and all of a sudden you get a family in there and you have a sewer problem. It's going to demonstrate itself where they might not have known. Another big concern is foundations, and a lot of times we're seeing problems with foundations that need to be repaired. So what has your experience been there, Kari?
Well, a lot. I mean, it gives you you have your inspection dates on your contract and everything. So if we have in our office, we have people that we work with and highly recommend, and they can come in and get a closer detailed look at what's going on with the foundation. Because your inspector, he's a generalist. He might point out the things, but he can't give you exact information.
Right.
So we have the specialists come in, and they will give us an idea of what it's going to cost to get repaired, and this isn't a big deal. It doesn't look as bad as what it is. So it's always good to have those kind of people, in your back pocket. So.
Well, and I've been telling you guys about a deal that another agent in our office is working on. Everything looked fine, but when the inspector looked at the foundation, it was on wood, and part of it had no foundation. And so we got the contractor over to take a look at it. He consulted with engineers, and it's a $23,000 problem. Now, again, had this person bypassed the inspection, they either would have had maybe a house over time that starts pulling apart, or they would have had to come up with, $20K plus for a repair. So those are all things that are important. And what has your experience been working with buyers in terms of inspections?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I run into, I guess, with buyers and inspections is a lot of times when the inspection report comes through, there's a lot of things that get pointed out. And so I think the biggest thing that's important is pointing out the ones that are red, the ones that, your house will fall over, the foundation is awful, or, something maybe electrical, like we have one that was on one of my deals that it needed to be addressed because it's a safety concern and could potentially cause the house to catch fire. So I think the biggest thing is just really sitting down with your buyer and going over the ones that are a big concern, but then also kind of helping put their mind at ease at ones that are very basic. And so, like foundation work, to kind of go back onto that, buyers really don't want to deal with that kind of stuff, especially, I work with a lot of expired listings and stuff, so I have really done my kind of due diligence and research as to why some homes don't sell.
Right.
And these houses are absolutely beautiful. I mean, some of them very close to, downtown, close to schools, have everything going for them. And then you look into them and then it's like, oh, well, it needed a $30,000 foundation repair. And I just think it just turns buyers' heads completely the other direction, and they are ready to run once they see those kinds of big repairs.
Because they don't know what it's going to take. And then I think on the other end, if the seller has an agent who's not advising them to at least get the bid, and potentially somebody could have paid for it at closing, had it all done, but if they don't have that kind of advice, they're just going to lose sales and not know what to do about it.
Absolutely. And so I think the biggest thing is just being honest with buyers and sellers on problems that are big and need to be addressed versus ones that it's like, you can go to Home Depot and get a $10 toilet handle. That's not going to be a problem, and get it up to speed where it needs to be, And in the inspection report, it might come off as pretty alarming, but it's not that big of a deal versus, if the house is on a wooden foundation and part of it's missing, you've got a big deal. You've got a very big issue there.
That is a big deal. Or if your sewers basically disintegrated,
you're starting to smell it, you've got a problem. So, yeah,
that too. Well, and one of the other things that we are seeing, I mentioned before, is just the pricing with sellers. I think a lot of times people maybe are a little optimistic about what their house will sell for, and what we're seeing is things sitting on the market. I mean, typically, the last time I checked, which was yesterday, it takes about 2 months before a house that's listed gets under contract. I don't know if you remember a few years back, it was like maybe 3 days.
If even that.
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
So let's talk about pricing. What do you think is important when sellers are considering what to price their house at?
It's hard because you probably raised your family there, or you've been there for a lot, and nobody's going to love my house like I do. And they have a lot of sentimental value in there, but you have to treat it like a business transaction, get rid of the emotions part of it, and consider well, everybody wants the most for their house. Of course, we all do, because then you can get into something that much easier. But if we price it too high, people are going to say, oh, well, I'll just wait. And so it sits on the market longer, and then you do a price drop, and it doesn't get in front of people as much. And if you had priced it accurately the first time, you will get people immediately interested in it, instead of being like, oh, I want the most money for it. So pricing it correctly the first time is so important, because it's your first impression. Just like I always tell people, when people come to your house, you get one chance to make a first impression.
That's right.
And so making them wow right at the door is the most important thing, because if they're not wowed right when they get to the door, it's kind of like a mood point when you're going throughout the house.
Right.
So
well, and that's a good point too, because aside from pricing, the condition of the house makes a difference. And so, Elian, maybe you could talk about some of those things that sellers should be concerned about when they're listing their house.
Absolutely. Well, I think the condition of a house is one of the biggest things that buyers will look for. And so I think it's very good to be proactive before you list, and kind of do your own inspection and really understand what it is that could potentially, buyers could point out, and address those concerns and potentially take care of them before you hit the market. Because again, it goes back to, right now it's shifting more towards buyers, and so having to pay less in concessions when you're under contract is always nice. Usually, it goes back to, again, we want to get sellers the most amount of money possible, and so kind of luring out those added expenses at closing really will save sellers a lot of money, and also give them kind of peace of mind that when we're working with them, that we don't have to call them and ask them to do $10, $15, $20, $30, $40,000 in repairs, that they've already taken the necessary steps. So that way there might be something as minor as, oh, well, I don't like the color of the wall. That's an easy fix.
That's an easy fix.
Versus,
I got a leak.
Yeah, I've got a leak, or my plumbing is bad and it smells awful in here.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's just a good step that sellers
Yeah,
take. And
that's really a good point, doing that pre-inspection. And I think the other point of that is it can help people understand maybe if there's some huge things, like if they have a major sewer item, maybe they can't list their house right now. Maybe
Right.
they'll decide they need to save some money and fix some things, or take out a home equity loan and fix some things.
Yeah.
Again, they're going to have to decide on their personal situation, but that information helps you make a good decision.
Absolutely. Well, and when you're a buyer, if you open the door and you're just instantly greeted with an awful smell from the garbage disposal
Oh,
or
yeah, sure.
stuff like that,
Smells are
they're
big.
They're
Yeah.
gonna turn around.
Pet smells
and,
too are big.
Yep,
Yep.
absolutely.
And I
So
have dogs. I'm not like saying, whatever,
Yeah.
but really, if you're
maybe take
listing your
the-
house, I
Yeah.
probably would be pretty diligent
get the
about
carpet
yes,
shampooed, shine
yes.
up the wooden floors. It
Yes.
is, it's worth it.
Another point that Kari touched on was pricing your house right. And I know sometimes people will think the real estate agent is sort of a magician. Like, okay, I really want $500,000 for this house. Okay, make it happen, Kari. That's not really how it goes. And I mean, from my perspective, it's better to be honest and be upfront with people, because otherwise the seller is going to be mad at me or you or whoever's listing the house if we don't get it sold and they have an unrealistic price.
Exactly. I had some folks a couple of years back. They were adamant that they wanted to sell their house at a higher price. They had relatives out in Missoula that had great luck with listing their house at this price, and their house was so much better, and it's going to go for it. I'm like, it's a totally different market. We can't compare apples and oranges because it's two different areas and things are running differently there. Well, they were stuck on their mind and they wanted to go with that and went to that price, and it ended up staying on the market longer, and then we did price adjustments and to finally realize that okay, Kari was right.
Well,
So-
and you've seen listings that have been on the market for a while that you're now connected with, and being too high priced is one of the reasons they don't sell, from your perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you don't price it right to begin with, it ends up selling for a lot less, more oftentimes than not, versus if you just start at a realistic price. Especially because the buyers that are out in the market right now, they're more than qualified, but they're very strategic, and what they think it's worth is what it's worth.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, there's different cases where they come into a property and they think, oh, well, this is only worth $5.
Oh,
Right? That's
sure.
unrealistic.
Yeah.
But, it's just very good to start it right. Otherwise, because as agents, we don't control whether it gets sold or not, but we try to put it in a position to where it gets the most exposure and gets the showings, and then those lead to offers, versus if you just throw it on the market overpriced,
It's going to sit.
buyers turn their faces away from it, and then
Exactly.
it sits, and then we become the emotional punching bags when it doesn't get sold in 6 months. So
Well, we don't want that to
yeah,
happen.
exactly.
And
So
people think that the agents control the market, but honestly, it's the buyers and sellers that do.
absolutely.
What's what they're willing to pay for that property
And what they're willing to sell it for.
Exactly.
Well, folks, this has been a fun-filled half hour. I can't believe how fast the time went. And if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach us. I'll give you our main office number, 406-969-5800. And any one of us would be happy to talk to you further, or find us on Facebook. And everybody, we hope to see you next time on All About Billings.